In this video, we're talking about how the Steam Deck is back on top and whether or not you have the correct screen in your Steam Deck OLED. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne and this is Deck Ready, the channel where I talk about the Steam Deck and a bunch of other gaming handhelds. As for what I'm playing on my Steam Deck right now, I am playing Armored Core 6, and man, this game is absolutely phenomenal. It slipped by me, obviously, just because this year has been so crazy with game releases, but I was looking for something to play on the Steam Deck and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't play Armored Core. So I downloaded it. This game feels like a PSP game in all the best ways. And what I mean by that is that it's mission based. So you have just actual missions in a list, kind of like an older Metal Gear game like Peace Walker, for example. And it's really a loadout based game, right? Like you'll go into a level and you'll be fighting a boss and they might be handing your ass to you. And then you go back into the menu, you change your loadout, and then you're able to beat the boss at the end of the run. And it's not really as hard as a Souls game, not even close really. It's once you have the right loadout, you're able to persevere pretty easily. It's just the actual metagame is figuring out what loadout you need to beat each specific boss, which is really cool. I will point out that the first boss, it took me a few tries with the loadout that it pre-selected for me, but once I figured out the way to beat it, I felt like so powerful. And yeah, the game runs at a mix of like high with a couple settings set to medium at a locked 30, and it looks so good on the Steam Deck OLED screen. So yeah, if you've never played this, I cannot recommend it enough. The first news story I want to talk about today is that the Steam Deck is officially back on top. So the way Valve tracks global top sellers is by revenue. So since the Steam Deck came out, it's always been in the top 10 best-selling games on Steam, just because, you know, a $400 minimum device is going to make a ton of revenue, even with less sales than a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. But as this year has gone on specifically, it's slowly come down a little bit in the top 10 list, and then it rises back up when Valve does sales because they've been discounting the Steam Deck by quite a lot. But the combination of the Steam Deck OLED launch with the price drop on the older LCD models seems to have completely juiced the Steam Deck sales, because even now with the Steam Deck OLED launching when big games are out like Baldur's Gate, Call of Duty, and everything that was on sale on the autumn sale like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, it's still in the 4th spot, which is really good. I think that pretty much proves that this was the perfect time for Valve to release a device upgrade like the Steam Deck OLED. I know people are upset, right? Like there's a group of people who really want Valve to offer some trade-in programs specifically for people who may have bought a Steam Deck within the past 3 or 4 months or so. And while I get where they're coming from because the world kind of conditions us to think that way because of how Apple does phone trade-ins, I don't think it's really on Valve at this point, because you could just sell your Steam Deck, use the money towards a Steam Deck OLED if you really want one, or you could just save up and get a Steam Deck OLED and hang on to your hardware. For me, the Steam Deck OLED was really a no-brainer purchase just because I use my Steam Deck every day. So when I thought about maybe spending $670 on a Steam Deck OLED limited edition, I didn't have to think about it. I was like, that is a totally, completely justified purchase. And since I got it, I've been using it every day, and that price was totally justified. Like I was totally fine paying that, and I'm happy with the purchase I got. But where I kind of understand where people are coming from is that the upgrades don't really extend to just the screen. Every aspect of the Steam Deck was upgraded for this new revision. Everything from the buttons, everything from the screen to the Wi-Fi, even all the way down to the Steam and quick access menu buttons. So if you're someone who uses your Steam Deck every day, like it's your most used device like it is mine, that was probably a no-brainer purchase for you. But if you're someone who, you know, doesn't have a lot of friends who have a Steam Deck and it got the OLED, or if you're someone who, you know, uses it once every couple of weeks or maybe even a couple times a month, you're not really the kind of person who needs to look at upgrading because your Steam Deck's probably just fine. This video is sponsored by tomtoc. Look, I know your Steam Deck came with a case already, but tomtoc made 3 different cases that have you covered for any need. Basically what they've done is set out on a mission to make a case that's perfect for any Steam Deck user, and the way they've done that is by making 3 separate cases. So the first one to cover is the fancy case. This one's really cool because the material it's made out of is sort of feels like leather. It's very nice and premium feeling, but it also feels extremely durable, and they have little cutouts for the thumbsticks and to make sure that your bumpers are going to be nice and secure inside this case. And the best part is it's super slim and streamlined, so it's going to take up way less space in your bag than the official Steam Deck case. The next case I want to cover is the travel bag, which I think is great because it has a spot for your Steam Deck with little cutouts for the handles, so it fits in there nice and snug. It also has space for battery packs, chargers, screen cleaners, anything you could need to go with your Steam Deck. Like if you're a big accessory type person, even a controller would fit. This thing has more than enough room. And then finally, Finally, there's the armor case, which is made out of a military grade resin type material that feels extremely durable, but the best part is it's just as slim, if not a little bit slimmer than the fancy case. So even though you're getting a lot more protection out of this case, you're not losing out on any space savings, which is great. So yeah, all of these cases are available at great prices, and some of them might even be on sale when you see this video. So if you want to check them out, click the link down in the description. As always, huge shout out to tomtoc for sponsoring this video. My one gripe with how Valve is doing things though is that they don't just offer the OLED, right? Like I understand that they're offering the old LCD ones at a cheaper price, which makes a lot of sense. And I don't think you'd be crazy for picking one of those up and doing a lot of these upgrades yourself. What I'm a little iffy on is I think the entry model Steam Deck should be an OLED just like the other ones, but it could have 64 gigabytes of storage and be upgradable like the original Steam Deck, because that was such an easy recommend, right? For 400 bucks or less than that in a sale, you could say, hey, go grab one of these and then buy a 1TB SSD and upgrade it yourself. That was an easy sell for my friends and people who were like kind of on the fence about a Steam Deck, but ultimately wanted to get one. I was like, you can get in pretty cheap. And then if you find you need more storage, like an SD card or whatever isn't cutting it, it's a really easy upgrade to just do yourself. But that small gripe aside, I think everyone who wants the Steam Deck OLED is going to get it. And I think it's awesome that the sales have been boosted so much just by releasing this iterative device. And I also think it's really cool that they said, hey, you can buy this with confidence knowing it's not going to be, you know, totally upgraded in a year or two. They said that the technology for a Steam Deck 2, like the premium version that they want to do later on, is not there yet. It's not even close to where they want it. So they don't even envision starting working on that thing for 2 to 3 years. So if you buy a Steam Deck OLED now, you're going to get 2 to 3 good years out of it. And if we do get a Steam Deck Pro or Steam Deck 2 in that amount of time, it's going to be easier for you to decide whether or not to upgrade, because you'll know how you're happy or not with the performance on your Steam Deck. I'm also just so happy that Valve takes feedback as well as they do. I know they're just a big corporation at the end of the day. Their only goal is to make money. But if you take the Steam Deck and look at that and compare it to the Steam Deck OLED, literally everything they upgraded was a direct complaint from users who actually got the Steam Deck and said, hey, maybe you should upgrade the screen a little bit. Hey, the bumpers aren't that durable on this thing. I think we need a bit more durable bumpers, and they're not really clicky enough. And hey, the trackpad doesn't have good enough haptics and it feels different on the right side than the left. Like, they basically seem to have made an itemized list of every complaint people had, and then they just fixed everything, which is absolutely phenomenal. And even the one thing they said they didn't do, which is increase the performance, that turned out to be not entirely true, because they ended up putting faster RAM in the Steam Deck OLED than what we had in the Steam Deck LCD, and this 6nm chip does deliver at least a couple extra frames in a lot of games that were pushing the Steam Deck to its limit before. So yeah, Valve still hasn't released official numbers. It is interesting that the Steam Deck limited edition OLED still hasn't sold out. I know Valve kind of bent the truth a little bit by saying it was going to be extremely limited, but I think the price might just be a little prohibitive for people saying like, oh, I already have a Steam Deck. I don't really need to pay $700-ish to get an upgrade. I understand that perspective totally. And then other people who are just getting in for the first time might be saying, I don't really know if I'm gonna like this thing all that much, so I'm not gonna buy the most expensive limited edition. But for me, I was like, I want that. It's black, it's orange, it's see-through, it's everything I want in a handheld. And even though the etched glass doesn't look as good as the glare screen or whatever, I genuinely don't see the difference. I compared it to my Nintendo Switch OLED and everything seemed totally fine. Next up here, I want to talk about this controversy with the Steam Deck OLED screen though, because if you didn't hear, just like every device out there, Valve is using different components to make sure they can make enough Steam Deck OLEDs to meet demands. And because of that, they're using 2 different screen panels, and it's totally random which one you'll get. This of course brings me back to the launch of the PlayStation 5, because there was different fans being used in the PlayStation 5, and honestly, it brings me back to the launch of the Steam Deck, because there were different fans being used in the Steam Deck and people were like not happy with one fan over the other, and ultimately it worked out just fine. Anyway, the screens in the Steam Deck OLED are being made by 2 different companies. One is called Best on Earth, BOE, the other is Samsung. Now, according to some users, the Samsung one is the one that looks a little bit worse, and it's the way that the pixels are lined up. It's a little bit more blue than what you'd see on the other screen from Best on Earth, and because of the way the pixels are aligned, it can look a little fuzzier than the other screen, but the vast majority of people aren't really going to notice a difference, which is good. There's actually a way to test out which screen you have, and all you have to do is go over to desktop mode, open up the console, and then paste or type in the command I have on this screen. If you type in check Steam Deck OLED screen, Dexerto, the article will come up as the first Google result, and then you can paste it into the console window from there. And once you do that, you're going to get a big screen in the console that has has two blocks of numbers, and in the right side block, on the first row, the third number in, that's going to tell you what screen you have. If it's 03, you have the Samsung screen. If it's 04, you have the best on earth screen, and then you can decide what you want to do from there. I'm really curious if iFixit is going to start selling the two different screens, or if they'll just do what they did with the fan, which is sell the better fan of the two, and then people will be able to buy the panel and upgrade it themselves. I just personally don't really think it's that much worse to the point where I would upgrade it. But once again, I'm the guy who didn't think the Steam Deck's LCD screen looked bad, and I don't notice the etched glass looking any better or worse than glossy texture. So I might not be the best, most trustworthy source on this. I honestly, when I saw this, I was like, man, maybe I should check. And then I was like, wait, I'm not going to check because I don't want to be cursed with knowledge. I don't want to know whether or not I have the worst screen. But for this video, I went ahead and tested it out. And thankfully for myself, for my peace of mind, I have the best on earth screen in my Steam Deck limited edition OLED. So that's great to know. Another potential problem you could run into, though, that again, I'm not even going to go and look for, is that apparently some people who have limited edition Steam Decks are finding that they have dead pixels and other hardware defects. And it seems like this is actually affecting a pretty large number of people, because as Timo from Deckverse pointed out, he submitted an RMA request days ago, like almost a week ago, and he still hasn't heard anything back. So clearly something might have gone wrong with some of the limited edition Steam Decks, but it seems like Valve is getting through them as quick as they can, which is good. Some of them also apparently have broken pixels in the screen, and that's happening again with the limited edition more than the regular one. I don't want to check, but okay, I'll get up and check. All right, I just checked. I don't have any broken pixels. I don't have anything to worry about. But if you're the kind of person where like you wouldn't worry about a broken pixel unless you knew it was there, I would just say don't really look for it right now. Wait a little bit, and then like in a month or two, take a look and then see if you have a broken pixel, because if you do it then, it's going to ship a lot quicker than it would now, because Valve is getting inundated with requests, purchases, and RMAs. So you don't really want to make a RMA request right now if you don't have to. And the last thing I want to talk about is a screen mod that you can do on your Steam Deck, and it's all software based, which is really cool because you don't have to take it apart to take advantage of this. So despite the fact that the Steam Deck OLED has a 90 hertz panel, and then you have the unified slider that determines what frame rate will match up with what screen hertz the best, which is great, it turns out the panels that Valve is using can actually go up to 120 hertz, and someone figured this out somehow and made a quick script you can run that will switch your screen over to 120 hertz mode. Now, the 120 hertz version is just for Steam Deck OLED owners, but for users who have the original, the LCD Steam Deck, you can actually make your screen go up to 70 hertz. Now, I wouldn't do that on either of these actually, just because Valve made it run at 90 hertz for a reason, and I'm assuming that if you run it at 120, your battery life will die a little bit quicker. And I'm not sure if the slider will orientate the right way, right? Like if it goes up to 120 hertz, I don't know if the slider will be able to do the correct math and say, oh, if someone's playing at 40 hertz right now, I should leave the screen running at 120 hertz because 40 divides so evenly into 120. But still, knowing that this can be done with software is very cool. And honestly, it seems like something that Valve could implement themselves down the line. Like say, hey, we did some testing. We wanted to make sure that this would work. So we released the Steam Deck OLED with a 90 hertz limit. And now we're going to release an update that'll allow it to be opened up and run at 120 hertz. Now, it's not really the biggest deal regardless, because there are very few games that I think could run at 120 hertz on the Steam Deck. But for playing something like Dead Cells or Castlevania Advanced Collection or Cult of the Lamb, it would be pretty sweet to take full advantage of the screen and what's possible to do with it. So hopefully if Valve figures it out, they release it to the public. But if they don't, I think 90 hertz is more than good enough. But definitely let me know if you're going to do this hack down in the comments below.